Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in today's episode of The Hypnotist, I'm not going to be doing a hypnosis session. It's this weird time of year between Christmas and New Year's that I think a lot of people have this deep, intuitive insight as to the kind of changes they want to make. It's this closing of one chapter, beginning of a new one, and you get this powerful clarity, I think, at this time of the year that maybe you get when you're in some deep relaxation kind of place or on holiday far away from reality, or maybe on your birthday, but where the majority of people get this kind of sense of clarity is now. This is a wonderful time. And I thought for this episode, it may be helpful for me to share some pearls of wisdom from being a hypnotherapist for coming up to about 12 years now, thousands of clients, helping people to create changes, seeing the things that stop them making changes, and when it works well. And when you work with that many people, you do get some pearls of wisdom. So I thought it might be helpful to share some of them. So the very first, let's say, pearl of wisdom. At this time of year, a lot of people make resolutions, a lot of people set goals. And I'm a big believer in goal setting. But I do think there is something even more powerful than setting a goal. And that is when you choose to set powerful intentions. And a lot of people are against that idea because intentions tend to be vague. But what intentions have, I believe, is they can have the power of meaning and emotion, which makes them so more valuable than just a goal. And you know that to be true because if you think about previous years and you were to look at some of the goals that you've written down, some of those goals you made no effort at all to make any progress on. And therefore, if goal setting is so powerful, why was it that some of those goals you made incredible progress and some of those goals you didn't make any progress at all? And for me, one of those reasons that makes a big difference is the power of intention. And when I think back to where it all came from, me wanting to be a hypnotherapist, there was one insight that I had that was based on things I was interested in and a way that I thought I might be able to have a positive impact on the world. And in that moment, I set the intention not to have a hypnotherapy clinic, but to be a hypnotherapist. And being a hypnotherapist meant that I had to study hypnotherapy. I need to have a place to work from. I needed to get good. But all of those things were side effects of the intention of being a hypnotherapist. Later, that intention evolved, and then I wanted to be an innovative hypnotherapist, and I wanted to do things in hypnotherapy that people weren't doing or weren't trying, but it came from an intention. And I would encourage you at this time of year to really think about your intentions. Focus on what you want to be, what you want to achieve, so the things you want to have, what you want to experience, but think in terms of intentions rather than goals. And what you might find is some of those intentions naturally lead to goals and action points and things to do. But I would say it's much more powerful if you were to start 2025 with 2 or 3 powerful intentions than 100 goals. So that would be my tip number 1, is to think about those 2 or 3 powerful intentions. Imagine vividly what it would be like to live those intentions, because the subconscious mind thrives on clarity. And if you've got clear intentions and a meaning, a purpose linked to those intentions, the subconscious will work its magic for you. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is to harness the power of self-talk. A lot of people are aware of their inner dialogue. Most people aren't. For most people, it's an unconscious thing. It's like a clock ticking in a room that you've become unaware of. It's there, but you can't hear it. And for a lot of people, the self-talk, the inner dialogue, if you ask them, are they talking to themselves? Because there's fears, there's connotations of schizophrenia, and that you're mad if you talk to yourself. Most people will either not realize they're doing it or feel ashamed to say, oh yeah, I talk to myself all the time. The power of self-talk, I would say, it is very powerful. Most people that I've worked with severe anxiety, fear of rejection, fear of worthlessness and judgment, they're talking to themselves all the time, non-stop in their own head. And the irony is, if it was a different person saying some of the things they were saying to themselves, they'd punch them in the face. They wouldn't tolerate it at all. But because they're telling it to themselves, they do accept it. And worse than that, they believe it. And if your inner dialogue is motivating and encouraging and supportive and understanding, it's like you've got a therapist, a best friend, a motivational speaker inside your head all of the time. That would be an advantage. But just imagine you've got someone critical and pessimistic and sarcastic and mean-spirited in your head. Well, then it would make it very challenging to do anything. And sometimes you've got different inner dialogues with different motives. So many people have seen at least one episode of a cartoon where the character is having a dilemma, and there is an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other, and they're trying to sway them into a different decision. That actually happens a lot with people, not visualizing it as a devil and as an angel. These are just archetypes. But this kind of conflict of being pulled in different directions is way more common than you would think. So if we accept that your inner dialogue shapes and influences your reality and your emotional states, then it's safe to say that if we change that self-talk to make it useful and empowering, that spread over a year could have mind-boggling impact on the quality of someone's life. And you can do with that in many different things. The simplest is affirmations, and train yourself to say good things to yourself. But sometimes these parts are unconscious, and hypnotherapy can work with those parts. There's an episode that I created. It's available on the podcast. If you check it down, I think I called it Chat GPT because it sounds similar to Chat GPT. But the Chad is because the client that I worked with had a previous boss called Chad that was always encouraging and positive. And his inner dialogue wasn't like that. He had very harsh, critical parents. So we just changed that harsh, critical voice to a positive, empowering voice in a single session, and it worked wonders. So check out that episode. and lots of other episodes that deal with inner dialogue. Number 3, develop a relaxation ritual. Stress hinders progress. It becomes almost like the gunk that can kind of clog up all the cogs, stop things moving in the right direction. Also, for most people, the way that they cope with stress tends to lead to other problems. And that could be drink, drugs, food, distractions. Those things can have their own issues. So if we say that having that kind of every now and then the ability to get very relaxed is a useful thing, figure out what works for you. Now, that might be a walk in nature. That might be finding a good massage therapist. That might be finding a hypnosis podcast like this one, or meditation music. Find something and do it regularly. And if you do that, and you can get into that very relaxed state consistently, it's going to really make you more resourceful. A great definition of stress is demands in comparison to resources. So if you've got a relaxation ritual that brings down the perceived demands while simultaneously making you feel more resourceful, you're going to be the same person but feel like you've got a superpower, that you can handle more of what life throws at you. So figure out what works for you. For me, it's the gym. A good workout helps a lot. I have a hot tub in my garden. Sitting in the hot tub, no music, just with my own thoughts, that helps me. I listen to my own hypnosis sessions on this podcast. So I've got like 2, 3, 4 things that I do consistently that can always get me in a relaxed state of mind. You've just got to figure out what they are for you and make sure they're not one-offs. You're not going to get fit going to the gym once, and you're not going to get relaxed doing something relaxing once. And for some people, they'll have a relaxing holiday once a year. That isn't enough. You need to come up with a ritual that does it more consistently. So tip number 4 is beliefs are, again, one of these double-edged swords, these very sharp double-edged swords. Strong, empowering, useful beliefs can help you in ways, you won't be able to comprehend. But just a few limiting or disempowering beliefs can almost make something impossible. And I guarantee right now there'll be someone listening to this that were told they were stupid or an idiot throughout their childhood, and they believe it. Or they were told that success is for other people but not you, and they believe it. Or that you're a slow learner, and you believe it. And what if these beliefs aren't true, but you're acting as if they're true? That would mean that there is this world of possibilities that becomes invisible for you. I think a great metaphor for thinking about belief systems, it's like the lenses that you view the world. And I did this on myself when I was in a very, very dark place, full of anxiety, full of fear. My fear was social anxiety, it was people. And I did some early hypnosis on myself. I was about 20 years old, and I came up with this acronym about how people are precious, and each of the letters in the word precious represented a different positive attribute of people. And bearing in mind, I was very socially anxious, very shy, very, in a state of constant anxiety. And I really wired this into my mind. And the next day, I was walking through the same town, but the people were different. I was noticing people were smiling at me. I was noticing positive interactions with people. Clearly, the world was the same, but I was seeing the world differently just because I changed a perception about how I perceived people. And that was one belief. And I've changed a lot of my beliefs since back then. But it's been incredible because if you believe, just imagine that you believe that people are dangerous, people are out to get you, you would act very differently around people than if you believed that people are a source of inspiration and kind of connection. The people could be the same, but you would see different things in them. So I would say it doesn't have to be beliefs about people. It could be beliefs about your capabilities, beliefs about your future, beliefs about your past. But by changing just a few limiting beliefs or disempowering beliefs and making them powerful for you could be life-changing. So really think about them. And I would encourage you that, and it's a tip linked to this idea of reframing limiting beliefs. Keep a journal. You don't have to do it daily, but keep a journal so you get thoughts out of your head into something that you can reflect on and learn from. And if you state something that you feel is true, you're writing down a belief, and that belief may or may not be useful, but it's difficult to catch it in the moment. It's obvious when you look back, and then you can see your beliefs more objectively. So have some form of a journal where you get thoughts, ideas, emotions out of your head down, where you can actually reflect on that. And then when you find those disempowering, limiting beliefs, change them. Could be with a hypnotist. It could be you work on yourself. It could be that you do some kind of self-hypnosis. But if you find something that is not working for you, change it. It's one of the most powerful things you could do. Tip number 5 is to leverage visualization. And, you know, whether you call it visualization, whether you call it imagination, whether you call it future pacing, there's a lot of different words that mean exactly the same thing. And that is to imagine things as you would want them to be. And the very first tip, just to remind you, was set positive intentions. Imagine living as if those positive intentions have already come true is a very powerful thing because it gives you an ability to experience the future before it happened. It's almost like you get a test drive of the life that you want. And if that's a wonderful test drive, your brain now wants to make that imagined reality real, and it becomes really, really powerful. And if you have trouble visualizing, then I would say just imagine. You know, you don't have to picture it. You can just say, right, what would it be like if I already had this incredible life, this intention that is really profound for me? What would it be like? And when you ask questions like if, could, and would, you know, these are verbal stepping stones that gets your brain thinking about the future. They're a hypothetical frame. And the more time you think about what that future would be like, the more you're activating the power of your subconscious mind to almost like program it like coordinates in the sat-nav to let your mind know where you want to be. Number 6, an NLP term, which I love, is called anchoring. In behavioral psychology, they would call it conditioning or triggering. They mean the same thing. Anchoring positive states is such a powerful thing. And many people do this unconsciously. They'll have certain music that they play. They'll have certain fragrances that they'll wear. When they wear certain clothes, they feel different. If you're accidentally creating positive states, imagine what difference could be made if you did it intentionally. That if you just said, I'm going to have an elevated level of confidence, motivation, happiness, gratitude, and then you can wire that in. And you'd be surprised at how little it takes to do that. You know, if you think of how many people in the world don't have access to good quality water, Every time you have a sip of water, that could be a trigger for gratitude. Every time you have a shower, that could be, a trigger for feeling renewed. And the more that you link emotions to things, the more you're going to be in these wonderful positive states more often. And you can create them. The classic NLP anchor is to squeeze a finger and a thumb together whenever you feel certain things. But the problem with that is that you've got to remember to do it. And squeezing a finger and a thumb isn't as powerful as other things. And the anchors that I found most powerful are sounds, smells, and physical movements. If you look at any top sports person, they have certain movements and gestures and facial expressions that they make consistently after they've scored a goal or after they've got a match-winning point. You'll see that it works. If it works at the highest level, it's going to work in your day-to-day life. And a good hypnotist will help you to figure out what are the best resourceful states to be in and figure out ways of using your life and the things that you do, how to trigger and anchor these states so they just happen all the time. I'll share an example with you. Whenever I get some kind of a message, that could be an email, that could be an Instagram kind of message, it could be a comment on Spotify, that my hypnosis has had some kind of positive impact on someone, I really feel it recharges my batteries, gives me a renewed sense of purpose. And the more it happens, the more it becomes true. So therefore, I don't have to get myself motivated every day to record a new podcast episode. It comes from a sense of mission that gets replenished whenever I get good feedback. And I think I've had over 1,000 reviews. It's got an average of 4.7, I think, on the reviews, which means most people are giving me 5-star reviews. Most people are giving me good comments. That keeps my motivation high. But I don't have to do it myself. The comments and the messages become the anchor. They become the trigger for that. And again, you could find out these things that work for you. That might be a review. That might be a smile. That might be a handshake. There's anchors that we can create to get you in these positive states more frequently. And one positive state in particular, I think is one of the most powerful ones, is gratitude. So tip number 7 is to cultivate gratitude. Gratitude naturally shifts your focus from a space of lack to a space of abundance. Some of you will know that I created a course with about 23 hours worth of content called Hypnotic Wealth. When I was a teenager, I had very, very little. I grew up in a middle-class family, but my dad went to university, so it meant that there was a lot of scarcity. I did not have good quality clothes. I carried a plastic bag to school to put my books in. There was a lot of shame and embarrassment connected to this not having enough. It gave me a gift of being motivated to acquire more. But for me, the big shift that happened financially was when I believed in genuine, infinite abundance, that there is infinite possibilities, infinite opportunities. And when you believe that, you don't become like a hoarder. You don't feel this kind of scarcity. And I think it comes from a combination of gratitude, but also the knowledge that incredible things are happening all the time. So getting into that state of gratitude more often will create wonders for you, because you get to focus on what's good. I did a podcast episode called The Best Time to Be Alive is Right Now. If you haven't heard that one, track it down. I think that's the title, so just put it in Spotify. The Best Time to Be Alive is Right Now. Now, some people will say, no, the 60s were great, or the roaring 20s were great. You're not living in the 1960s. You're not living in the 1920s. You're not living in the time of dinosaurs. You're living right now. And therefore, the optimal belief is to believe that there is no one better to be than yourself, And the absolute best time to be alive is right now, because you are you and you're living in the present. And those two beliefs, cultivated and linked to this feeling of being grateful for being you and grateful for living at this time in history, is a superpower. It really is. So see if you can track down that episode, but getting in that state of gratitude is powerful. If you do have a journal already or start a journal, try and write 2 or 3 things down every day that you're really grateful for. And if you feel hopeless and maybe depressed, that may be a struggle, but set yourself the challenge to find 2 or 3 things that you're grateful, even if it's that you're drinking clean water and breathing fresh air, and that, you've tasted something nice, or you did one thing that made you smile. You'll be amazed when you start with the small things. It gets easier and easier because you're training those neural pathways to find and look for more things to be grateful for. And when you look, you find them. Tip number 8, embrace small, consistent actions. So many of the clients that I work with, they want to change everything now. And they don't realize that itself can be an issue. And sometimes when you've got very competitive children and they say, right, I'm going to beat you by 1 million goals, they've got something ridiculously big, because it means that if they lose, their ego is protected because they weren't going to win by that much anyway. Much better to have what I consider the perfect combination. I set what I call ridiculously big goals, and I link them to intentions. And I do that by calling them ridiculously big goals. I'm saying, look, I don't expect to have them, but, I'm going to believe that I can achieve them. But what I really do is I focus so much on the process that could increase the probability of wonderful things happening. If you, and let's look at this in extremes. If you did an hour of exercise every day and you had really good quality nutrition every day and you drank at least 2 liters of water every day, and you did that for 2 or 3 years, you're going to be a lot healthier at the end of that 2 or 3 years and probably have been sick less often. Equally, if for the next 2 or 3 years you drunk 2 liters of fizzy drinks and soda, you had a large pizza every day, you had lots of processed food, and you did that every day for 2 or 3 years, in one of those futures, you're likely to be a lot healthier and happier and leaner and more confident. And in another one, you're likely to be sick and overweight and probably on the way to type 2 diabetes. And here's the interesting thing. It's not a grand vision that's the difference there. It's the small, consistent actions. In one, the small, consistent actions are eating well, exercising, doing nutritious things. And in the other, it's putting gratification first. But when you zoom out and you say, what's the consequence of these small, consistent actions over a long time period? Sometimes it's obvious. It's obvious where things end up. If you did certain things small and consistent now, let's say you're in your 20s or 30s, guaranteed you're going to be a millionaire in the next 20 years. Guaranteed. Just by doing small, consistent things, you're guaranteed to do that. But most people won't, because they think it's not possible. And there is huge power in doing the small, consistent things, because that is what creates powerful change. And a lot of people are looking for the magic wand. They're looking for the silver bullet that changes everything instantly. And unfortunately, that's what leads people to be suckered into these quick fixes and these scams. Generally, the thing that really makes the difference is clear intentions, knowing what kind of life you want for yourself and doing the small, consistent things that increase the probability of doing that. So embrace those things. And journaling would be a small, consistent action. A relaxation ritual would be a small, consistent action. figuring out what your positive emotional triggers would be, and then working on improving that. That would be small, consistent actions, and it would completely change your life. Tip number 9 is to release the past. And I would say the past, particularly at this time of year, is a useful thing to reflect on. And certain things may come up. Frustration may come up. Guilt, shame, embarrassment may come up. But I would say there is power in that. The purpose of guilt and shame is not to punish you. It's to influence future decisions so that you get more of what you want. You become wiser from your past. Learn from the past and then release it. You know, this is a great time to reflect on the last 12 months by asking yourself the question, if you had a time machine and you could go back to 12 months from now, what would you do differently to be happier about where you are now? And there is a lot of value in asking yourself that question. But once you've got the insights and the wisdom and the change in strategy, release the past. Let go of those regrets. If someone's wronged you, okay, they've wronged you. You don't have to carry that, all the way into the future. Hypnosis can help process and reframe negative experiences. I've worked with a lot of people, been on the receiving end of horrible traumatic events. But that doesn't have to define you as a victim forever. Okay. Take whatever the value is from that situation, move on from it. It doesn't have to define your life. And then that frees up a lot of resources to move forward. And I think, a few days before a brand new year, that's a good time to release the past. And then the final tip is to program your subconscious before sleep. You've got this kind of very receptive state to hypnotic suggestion just at the point where you wake up and right before you go to sleep. And a lot of people, and I see the stats from Spotify and Apple, so I know a lot of people do use this podcast as part of their relaxation ritual, as their way of kind of getting into a good headspace. And they know, either consciously or unconsciously, objectively or intuitively, that if you listen to these kind of suggestions right before you go to sleep, it's probably planting seeds in more fertile soil. So if we accept that the mind is the most suggestible right before falling asleep, this would be a good time to give yourself positive affirmations. This would be a good time to do self-hypnosis. This would also be the good time to listen to a hypnosis podcast. But pick the right episodes, cultivate playlists that are good for you so that you're programming your mind right before you go to sleep. So these are my 10 tips. And remember, number 1 is probably the most powerful. Set positive intentions. Know what you want. That could be an intention to make a change or to be someone, to improve an area of your life, but be really, really clear on those intentions. And if you feel that a hypnotist could help you with these intentions or to increase the probability of getting more out of the next year, there will be a link in the show notes where you can schedule that free 30-minute consultation call with me. We'll have a chat. I might not be the right hypnotist for you, but if you've listened to my stuff for a while now, your unconscious is already in rapport with my voice. It's going to take a suggestion from me differently than from a stranger. So therefore, we've got more probability of some powerful changes. And if that appeals to you, click that link in the show notes or check out my website, adamcox.co.uk. Book the free 30-minute consultation call. We'll have a chat, and it could well be that I end up working with you next year to help make those positive intentions become true. Whether you work with me or not, thank you very much for listening to my podcast. Hope you had a lovely Christmas, and I'm wishing you a very, very happy new year. I'm going to check out for now. I'm going to take my daughter to the movie. We're going to watch Mufasa, the new Lion King movie. Hopefully it's a good one. So I'm going to check out, Have a wonderful new year, and thank you again for listening to the podcast.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.